It's about a guy who got a telescope, learned the mainstream ways, went out, observed the sky, and over time began to realize, wait a minute, what I'm observing here does not jive with what I've been told. When you take for granted things like the sun and the moon and the sky, and you just accept all the things you've been told, there's a whole universe out there waiting for you, pun intended. The freedom to speak, the freedom to think, freedom of expression is being decimated by major corporations. And I will maintain to everyone listening, it's being done to the sky clock. And as we come into what I consider to be a new era here, you're going to find a lot of people out in the world challenging things that are supposed to be unchallengeable. And that's absolutely what a free society does. Really proves it is the camera pan. So when I panned the camera down, the wave started. I didn't notice it, but as I panned it up, I went above the wave and the wave caught up to the camera, and that's proof positive that it's a filmed event. You begin to understand that what you've been told is not accurate. It just isn't. And I launched a podcast to put out another perspective, a point of view. We're all familiar with how an animal lives its life in the world. There's really no pre-planning in most of its everyday events. They go through life, something suddenly happens, and they react to that thing. They don't stop and think about what's happening. Usually they're scared or they run or they react very quickly to whatever goes on. It's a reactionary mindset. And this is much of what we see with false news as an example. False news is put out on the television, on the media. People are exposed to it and they react. They do not take the time to be a human being, to think about what they're being presented with, challenge what they're being presented with, and benefit from the change that will occur over time if they get into the habit of doing this.
The Zika virus, I don't know if it's every year, but like maybe every other year, they're coming up with something, some horrible thing is going on in some place, and it's going to get you, and you got to do what we say. But what do you think about that?
Problem is all these kind of viruses and medical things, they play on our humanness and they play on emotion. Emotion is wasted motion. Whenever you allow yourself to be manipulated into these high emoted states, you have opened the door for magic to be done against you. And when I say magic, it means to create a thing that was not there a second ago, which all of a sudden is there now.
I would agree with you there, definitely. Cause and effect, it's one of those immutable natural laws. You do something, there's going to be a consequence, and that's what it all boils down to. What they're trying to do is subvert the consequence from actually affecting them by having the action perform before there's a possible consequence for it. It's kind of hard to explain.
I know exactly where you're going with this, but in some ways it does bring you back to mentalism again, doesn't it? You know, in some ways they're demonstrating over and over and over that our minds can be used for their benefit. Movies are the perfect example of this.
Now, what you've just been saying, I would say that kind of harkens back to the old adage that your thoughts create reality, and that the elite want to use that by shaping your thoughts so they can get the reality they want.
Bingo. You got it. That's exactly what the whole point of that is. They're trying to bring about this reality that they want, and they're going to use you to do it. And once again, these experiments, they do nothing but prove that your observation and your thought does affect reality around you.
All right, let's talk about Alchemy 101. What are the basics that a mind should be aware of with regard to alchemy in the era we exist in?
The universe was created for our success. Heaven and earth are one and the same, and the moment is all positive. All places are holy, and all moments are perfect. The moment being all positive, meaning that it is Eden, Nirvana. The moment is peace, joy, and beauty. To begin, once we know that, the birthrights of the soul are love, joy, and success. No matter what the soul's past has done in any incarnation, you have the chance to finish up every time you are here. We need to know that the 3 A's, attention, affection, acknowledgement, are necessary for the soul's thriving. There is no death, only infinite, eternal rebirth and life The universe operates on perpetual health, and the gateway to the alchemical process is knowing that the moment is infinite.
In my view, for the people who want to take an interest and get out and try to add something to what we can learn in the modern age by filming the sky, I think the sun is going to be the next big thing. All right, man. Welcome to the live stream. It's me and Rose tonight. I hope you are all doing well out there. Are you with me, Rose?
I'm with you, Crow.
I was going to say, are you with me or against me? How's it down in Louisiana? How are you guys doing tonight?
It's been a busy day with the release of our episode, and really exciting to see your new solar work that you were just sharing with me. And I'm looking forward to showing it to everyone else. How's the weather in Rhode Island?
Well, we went into fall in the middle of the night about 2 weeks ago. The fall weather just hit. The humidity stopped dead, literally dead in the middle of the night. And it's pretty much been gone, which is kind of exciting because in the fall, I have my only opportunities for shots at excellent seeing and excellent air transparency. So far, the best I've done is an above average, with everything else average or below average. And this is what we face. The problem with this is when you have a gigantor solar telescope, it amplifies bad seeing. And so we're going to show everybody some of the work that I've been doing. By the way, I hope you guys all become members of Crrow777 Radio. I pay for a private server. I pay for the emails. We pay for everything so that we can be free of censorship. The only thing we do on social media, for the most part, is talk about what we're doing over there, because we're not playing the control game anymore. When you become a member, you get access to all the forums. You can create top-level ideas. I have a bunch of solar stills that people requested, and they're pretty cool because some of them print 40 or 50 inches. By the way, if you guys do get solar images and you hang them, please send us an image. We'd appreciate that. But also, you get exclusive access to Shoot the Moon, which covers all my older lunar work, the lunar waves, the first discovery of the so-called second sun, which I'll talk a little bit about tonight, and exclusive access to my current telescope work. So it's all happening there, and we do it for a reason. We pay for a private server, which everyone knows about. But as we get into the fall, well, let me back up a bit. Last March of last year, I had more filming days than I have this entire season due to chemtrailing, bad weather, and everything else. In this month, I had a handful of days. The last month, it wasn't much better, but what is better is the level of what I'm producing and how I'm being able to produce it. And we'll be showing the stills. I think we have a little bit of animation, don't we, Rose, to show here?
Yep, we have a little bit of animation to share. A bunch. I have the bumper that I removed the audio from so you could speak over it. And then we have from the hour of filming you got, just so people could see how much it takes just to get a few precious seconds.
Yeah, we're going to show you an animation, which is shot under not great conditions, but it's a good animation. But I shot for an hour to get 5 seconds. Actually, it's 4 seconds in standard runtime. But one of the things I want to talk about is the so-called second sun. There have been more sightings. It seems that when the sun is rising, that's your best shot. And if you go out to film it and you do film something, be sure you use video and be sure you move the camera so that we can prove it's not lens flare. But if you do, please send me the footage and a roundabout location. You don't have to be precise. And the time of day you shot it would be very helpful. I'm thinking about packing up and getting an east-facing location, but I can't do that yet because the weather is just so unpredictable right now. But actually, to be fair, there's been almost no rain, but the cloud cover's been what's killing me. Do you want to add anything in, or do you want to show anything, Rose?
Well, yeah, we definitely want to show the solar work. I wanted to ask you, though, if you've considered boiling the vinegar again. You've mentioned it offhand, and a lot of people out there have no idea what you're talking about. And so I was answering in comments to explain it to people. Do you want to go ahead and explain that and whether or not you're going to try it again?
Yeah, well, I would. If the only problem I'm facing is synthetic spraying, and by the way, at Stephen Cook, thank you so much. This goes to help to pay for the server where we exercise free speech. But to get back, thank you, Stephen Cook, I'm sorry. But to get back to the vinegar, if they're spraying lines in the sky and it's blocking the sun, and you take a gallon of vinegar and you get a very, very good rolling boil, it'll break all that up. It goes up into the atmosphere. It's actually astonishing when you see it. At first, you can't believe it. You're just thinking this can't be going on, but it does work. And if you get it on a good boil, not like a heating pad or, like a hot plate boil, but like a barbecue boil, a good rolling boil with distilled white vinegar. That's what I use. You can use other kinds, but that's what I use. It will break all that up. It'll like punch a 5-mile wide hole in the sky above you. But my problem is it's not always the artificial trails that are blocking me. It's just regular clouds. And that's really been the most of what's hurt me, except for the times they spray right over the ecliptic. The other day I filmed for 2.5 hours. I was getting a top-notch animation data, and a single plane put a single line over the sun and killed the day. But what you're looking at here is the animations I have done in the last month, and these are not the best I have to offer. The best I have to offer are going to be in the 18th member solar video. So members of Crrow777 Radio will have access to all that. And I include everything that I know to date when I make each of those, and I'm trying to edit together the 18th right now. But let me talk a little bit. This is an older clip right here where a double looping prominence. Look, you can see the electromagnetic shapes. There should be no argument. You can tell those are electromagnetic loops. This was shot on a day with below average seeing, and I was having camera issues. Here is another looping prom, a single looping prom, but check out that cloud of plasma or whatever it is in the upper right, just kind of hanging there and then contributing to the prominence arc and swirl. This is speeded up hundreds of times so you can see the motion. For me to show you this, I had to film for 3 hours, and this is probably less than 20 seconds of animation. Here's another looping prom. It's actually the same one with a double loop. You've got the hovering cloud upper right and then the lower looping prominence. When I say prom, I'm talking about a prominence, and that is the flame-like things you see arcing around.
Here's the August 31st. So this is 9 seconds. So that's an hour of work for just this 9 seconds.
Well, this is actually 4 seconds that I slowed down.
Oh.
But look how crisp and clear the quality of that is. And I had a choice this day to shoot this or a tower at the bottom. I chose this, and unfortunately the tower went away in the hour that I had before the visibility, or no, it was the wind kicked up and stopped me from filming. But look, this was average. So this was an average seeing day, and look at the quality of this animation. So if I can get the skill level I have now with above average situation, I should be able to produce some incredible things. This is actually for the episode we're running. But when you do this and you're looking through the scope, you can't see the movement, which is why I have to capture 3 hours and then speed it up so that you can see the movement. But this was shot on the same day. See the cloud in the upper right, that prominence? That's what you were just looking at animated. Here's the crazy thing. Look at all that surface detail. All those little white lines are actually prominences, just like the flame on top, except you're looking at it downward against the face. The night the middle of the night that I shot that last still you just saw, people in Rhode Island saw the aurora borealis, which is typically attributed to sun's motion. Here's a blackout shot that I took, but I also took the surface shot. See all the little spiky things at the very edge, the limb of the moon? Those are called spicules, and their average lifespan is 8 minutes. So that gives you a sense of how much I've had to speed this up so that you can see the motion. This is a sunspot, believe it or not, that I processed in a way that allows you to see the 3D nature of it. And we're told all kinds of things by NASA, but in my view, we're looking at an outer shell. There is no nuclear furnace from my point of view, and the energy that is making all this happen, I accept as being drawn from what we're going to call counter space. And I know people will say, what's counter space? But it's the best I can do right now. Put it this way, I need to know a lot more than I do know about the sun. But that's fine. I've got the tools and I've got the ability to do firsthand observation. And for me, that's the best you can do, firsthand observation, if you want to know things.
I'm running this one more time, and then I'm going to show a 4-second one from April 29th that just barely shows the motion of the sun over that period of time. Do you have any idea how much you sped up or slowed down that?
This is extreme. That's probably 800-900 times speed.
Right.
So if I was to take this and just let each frame be a half a second, which is kind of the standard, you know, you'd probably get 6-7 seconds out of the deal.
So should we go through the latest suns that I have uploaded to StreamYard now?
Yeah, can we do them one at a time before you roll through them?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to do one at a time here. Here's the first one that I'm going to show, which is a recent blue outline one. And then here is August 21st, inverted disc. Go for it.
All right, so give me a second here. John Powers going to a higher elevation are these going to roll through, or can you freeze on them, Rose?
Now I'm just pausing on images that I uploaded individually. It's not a video, so you can just speak.
All right, so just put one up, pause, and then I'll tell you when to roll through. But John Powers, there's a bunch of things for solar visibility. It is the hardest thing. They say if you have an area where it's known for good seeing, you pick that. But going up a mountain in an area of good seeing does help. Also, if you can shoot over a lake, that helps. Low humidity. There's all these things that go into, you could look it up online, what is acceptable as good seeing. And it is the biggest deal for the solar work I'm doing. There is no harder thing to do than I have ever done in astronomy than try to film the sun at a high level. It is by far the most difficult thing. But getting back to the still image that Rose put up, this is from, what is it, 8/21 there? I can't barely see. 8/21/24. So what you're looking at here is an inverted image. Now you see the sunspots that are white. If you see them and they're not black, you know the image has been inverted. That's fine. It's done all the time. And the reason it's done is because it brings up the 3D nature of what you're looking at. And it's more interesting than an uninverted, almost every time, than an uninverted image. Those little white squiggles over the face of the sun are the prominences. Look at the lower left. See those flame-looking things? Those are prominences. All those little white squiggles are prominences too. It's just you're seeing them at a dead downward angle. So they're called filaments. I don't know why they don't just call them, face prominences or something, but it's the same thing. So whenever you see a solar image where the sunspots or the filaments are white, you know instantly it's been inverted. And we'll be able to show examples. And let me try to catch up, see if anyone asked me something. I saw a question.
NASA. What do you think of NASA putting out solar images? So I guess they should be more specific. Was it that it was hydrogen alpha, or was it that it was CGI is the question?
So look, there are many, many wavelengths you can film the sun, and NASA puts out some that I can verify, but I'm shooting in hydrogen alpha. For me to verify, I've got to look at what they would shoot in a similar wavelength. but they put out a lot of things that are in wavelengths I can't have any access to because I don't have the tools, and a lot of them look like CG. But if they're showing you a sunspot, that's typically where the sunspot is, which I can observe in hydrogen alpha. So my short answer is roundabout the data's right, but they get into wavelengths where the average person has no ability to match what they're doing because of the tools that would be required.
Shall we move on to the next sun?
Next up.
We're looking at May 3rd, 2025. Are we done here, or should...
Yeah, go ahead. Roll through.
This is August 10th, 2025.
Okay, I'm waiting for the update. I'm looking at the YouTube version. There it goes. Okay, so this was shot the other day, and it was so interesting looking at it live because there was like this hovering cloud, which you see here. The prominence looked like a hovering cloud with all these like octopus legs going down. When I got it into production, I couldn't see as well as I could when it was in black and white on the scope. So I did everything I could, but it's so interesting to watch because there's this energy plasma cloud, I assume plasma, floating there, and just this nonstop of energy arcing down that looks like tentacles. The cool thing about this is, see the spicules on the edge of the limb of the moon? You can kind of see that even with below average seeing, I'm killing it for quality. You can see all the surface detail there. So the point I'm trying to make is if this would have been above average, this would have been spectacular. Also, Rose, can you kind of keep an eye on the chat because I can't do both at once?
I can't do both at once either because I'm controlling the media.
Okay, I'll just go back and scan and try not to miss anything.
We'll take time to scroll up, and also people should always know that you can contact me with questions, and I've gotten a bunch of questions from the comment section. So if we don't get to your question, put it in the comment section, and then I'll gather them up for the next time that we do this.
All right. So Michael Matreski, I am the guy who first filmed the lunar wave. I do not think the moon is a hologram. Unfortunately, years and years ago, I used the word hologram to try to describe what I thought I was seeing, and I shouldn't have done that because now, as you can see here in the comments, people attribute me to saying the moon is a hologram. That is not even close to what I accept as correct.
Now I'm looking back at the chat. Do you want me to go back to where I can switch the picture now?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll keep an eye on the chat, Rose. You got enough to do.
Well, I want to see it too. I wish I could do both at once. Okay, August 31st, 2025. Look at this gorgeous disc.
So Greg Peterson, I have filmed the moon during eclipses many, many times. I caught every lunar and solar eclipse over a 5 or a 6 year period. I believe, is some of that footage in Shoot the Moon? I think it might be. If it's not, it's definitely, if you go to my YouTube channel, you got to go way, way back to all my solar work. But this is a recent image. It was shot on the last day of August, just a few days ago. This is the image I took, and that night at about 2 a.m., people in Rhode Island saw the aurora borealis. Now, people say, or there is a common acceptance, that the sun's energy is contributing to the aurora. I haven't looked into it that deeply, but that's not hard for me to consider as possible. But look at all the little filaments and everything else on the face and the activity. So there's prominences from basically 11 o'clock all the way down to the right. See that tower down below 3 o'clock? At around 4 o'clock, there's a tower. Mm-hmm. I chose to film the top, that cloudy thing up at the top right, instead of that tower, unfortunately. And in the hour I had, that tower completely disappeared. So it might have been the better target. Unfortunately, I didn't choose it. And so I'm going to ask everybody looking, has this image been inverted or is it the original based on what I've told you? Sorry, I'm getting a drink. So I'll cut to the chase. It is inverted. The way I know this image has been inverted is because the filaments on the face, the white squiggles, they're white, and the sunspots are white. to my naked eye and an uninverted image, which I think we have examples, Rose, those sunspots would be black, which tells you, you see the black areas around the sunspots. In an uninverted image, those would be closer to white.
So yeah, now I'm going through more images. This is another favorite. Look at that, the way that prominence is shooting out. And then you can see the black sunspot in the lower left-hand area.
Well, actually, the sunspot is white. It's the energy surround. This is a sunspot that's about to totally collapse. Those two little white dots are the sunspots.
Oh.
When two sunspots come together, things can happen and energy can move. But that area, if we were looking at an uninverted image, you'd see two black sunspots and then this white energy area, which we see here in black. But again, that prominence up top is like a floating cloud with endless plasma coming.
So is this an example with the sunspots being black? And is this
that is. So this is an uninverted image, which I processed in a way to try to show the 3D nature. They're rolling through the Rose.
No, I just changed it too quickly. Sorry.
Can you roll back to the uninverted one? So here you can see that the sunspots are black and that area around it where all that energy is white. But look at the lower right sunspot first. Do you see that little squiggly white? Those are these energy tentacles going around the corner and down in. And I'm trying to get good footage of it, but they like sparkle and flash at the ends down in that hole. Now look at the upper left sunspot. There's it's called a light bridge. That little filament going across the sunspot is referred to as a light bridge. And we'll have more images as we go along. I think I have one that shows this blown up, but it's really quite incredible. And as you can see, the upper left pair of sunspots, actually it's 4 sunspots, are surrounded by white, which is a bunch of energy. This one's from 8:30, so the second to the last day of last month, and all the way around the sun is energy dispersion. And this, I assume, is what's driving the aurora so far south. Here's the thing. 15 years ago, I was at a function in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and people were going to the north of the Upper Peninsula and just astonished that they could see the aurora. I'm much, much further south in Rhode Island, and we're now seeing the aurora here. And that's a tell of some kind. I haven't really focused on it to try to figure out, but I think it goes without saying the sun is changing. The color of the sun seems more pale. How it feels on your skin. I hear a lot of people say it feels like it burns you more quickly, but what I sense about it is it feels more direct on my skin, but I don't burn as quickly. So it feels like it's getting me quicker, but it's actually just feels that way.
Quick correction here. What I was showing before is actually, if you look at the image, this date here, and I know that you're behind because you're looking at the YouTube stream, but what's going to come up is actually August 30th of last year.
Oh.
So what you're going to see is me toggle between August 30th of last year and then now here in just a moment is going to be August 31st a couple days ago.
I'm getting confused because I'm looking at the YouTube stream and then the one I see isn't the one that's coming.
Right. That's why I wish you were looking at the same tab as me.
All right. I got to switch, but I can't see the Dealy Whopper if I go over to the other one.
So I'm going to switch to the comment section unless you tell me to switch the image, and then I'll put the comments on the screen if there's a question.
Okay, cool. So if anyone has any questions, I'll try to pay attention to the chat here for a minute, because in a minute, I'm going to share my screen and try to get some bigger views of things. And I have that clean animation as well, Rose. Here's the deal. In my view, we're in an era change right now. And everything about this place is going to change. It is my point of view that the people who run this joint knew that this change was coming, and they have leveraged on that. The sun is maybe the indicator of an era. You can consider like the old Hopi ideas that they would talk about. where there was this sun, then there was a new sun. Maybe it's, you know, I've seen them numbered 1 through 4. And while I'm not suggesting that it's a brand new sun, I am suggesting that the sun has changed a lot since I was young. I remember it as being more yellowy. It seems much more pale to me now. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to use a solar telescope until 2014, I think, is the first time I had the opportunity. And that was a very low-end scope compared to what I have now. As a matter of fact, these views that we're all enjoying of the sun, to get views like this of the sun from an amateur was nearly impossible 15 years ago. So I feel really privileged to be able to do this. And the point I'm trying to make clumsily is that the sun, in my view, is indicative of the era change and in lockstep with the era change. It is my point of view that this is consciousness we're looking at. This is alive. This is not dead matter, in my view, and it relates directly to our consciousness. I accept that our consciousness is lifting, and that is tied to, and I don't know whether to say influenced by or nurtured or nourished by, the light of this world. Not the religious light of this world, the literal light of this world. And I know a lot of religions have made that line blurry. I'm not going to make it blurry. This is where we get our energy, our light. It is connected to our consciousness. It affects our consciousness, and in itself is consciousness. That's the way that I view it. And I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with me, but I will say I'm basing what I'm saying on firsthand observation. And to be fair, that does not make me right. It absolutely does not make me right. And anyone can go back at my work, like the gentleman I was talking to earlier. I used the word hologram 10 years ago, and that's still following me, and that's incorrect in my point of view. So to make the point, can I be wrong? Yeah, I'm wrong all the time. But I do the best I can to update when I know that I've been wrong. So, Rose, we should probably roll into some of the other images.
Yes, I was waiting for you to tell me that you wanted me to.
Yeah,
but I've been but while you've been talking, I collected 3 questions. Oops,
Okay. Let's do that.
So the 3 questions I grabbed while you were just talking is, I think someone meant to say, what do you think the moon is? But I think they made a funny typo and they said, what do you think the noon is? But funny enough, I feel like that's a better question for you to answer. What does noon actually mean? So maybe you should answer both. What do you think noon actually is? And what do you think the moon actually is?
Okay, if you're talking about midday noon, is that what we're talking about?
Well, a lot of people think that noon means 12 p.m. according to the clocks on their computer screen. And what's the difference between that and the apex of the sun?
So our clocks are like the internet. They spend all day doing cheap knockoffs of reality. I can pick up a book or I can go to a web page. A book is written and crafted and not easily changed. A web page tries to mimic that, but it can be changed all day. It's a cheap knockoff in comparison from my point of view. Many people would argue and say, well, that's not true. I can get to a web page anywhere instantly. Well, you're right. That's why it's so popular. But a clock is not helping us. It's an artificial approximation of time. If we say noon and we mean it to be midday, the only midday in reality is the apex of the solar arc during any given the day. In other words, you can look at your clock, you know, your iPhone or whatever you're carrying all year long, and I would bet, and I'm not a betting man, that it's not right 90% of the year. The only noon we have is when the sun is at solar noon. That's the highest apex of its arc for that day. Now, the moon, that's a little trickier, but for years I have said it's not dirt and rock. From my point of view, this is my personal point of view based on close to 6 straight years of filming it through a telescope. I would describe it as a light. In my view, you cannot walk on it. You couldn't put a boot on it if you could get there. That is my point of view. Also, you will notice that in all the media and all the old things that we see talking about the moon, they constantly refer to it as a reflection. As a matter of fact, look at the DreamWorks a movie, right? In DreamWorks, the moon comes up. There's a little boy fishing. Well, what's he fishing for? He's fishing for souls. The moon is in some way connected to life and death. But that little boy is fishing for souls from my point of view. But when he casts his bobber down, what does it do? It falls in a lake, and you realize I wasn't looking at the moon. I was looking at a reflection of the moon on the surface of water. If you go through the old Buddhist doctrines or the old Indian doctrines, you'll hear masters or very advanced spiritual yoga people say things like, don't show me the moon, show me light glinting off a piece of broken glass. And I know I just said a lot of words, but in my view, we've been told the exact opposite of what the moon is, to include that someone could walk on it. I also feel that it is probably reflecting what we are doing down here in some way, and it is almost certainly attached to our deaths in some way.
All right, so we got another question here. Is there a connection between the sun activity and when we see earthquakes and volcano eruptions, in your view?
Well, I'm not qualified to give a serious answer for that, but I can give a common sense answer for that. My common sense answer is that any energy that exists here is almost certainly tied to the sun. Without the sun, we don't have life. We don't have light, we don't have heat, we don't have the plant kingdom, and therefore we don't have the animal kingdom. So I think it's a safe common sense bet that any large energy expenditure that goes on down here is almost certainly attached to the energy giver, which is the sun. But I suppose there's also the possibility that earthquakes can now be triggered by human beings. That would not surprise me if I learned that that was true.
All right, another one that I collected was, what's your take on the Atlas object heading towards the Earth? And by the way, I collected them by retyping them out as they were going by, so they're not verbatim, but I'm not aware of what they're talking about because I'm not exposed to the news. So maybe you can educate me and tell me about the Atlas object heading towards the Earth and what you think about it.
I don't watch the news, but I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and you can tell me if I get it wrong in the chat. The Atlas object I think you're referring to is NASA claiming that there's some dangerous alien spaceship coming towards us.
No way.
So I'm going to say two words, poppy and cock. So let's talk about a hallucinogenic flower and a male chicken. Poppycock. Not buying for a second. If I am correct, and that's what you were referring to, it's just logical fallacies, one after the other. And it's also designed to get you to think of space in the way they want you to think about space.
Okay, someone asked, is the sun revolving on its own axis? We know it's a physical rotating sphere, but there are different pieces of the sun that are like revolving at different speeds. But then there's a general amount of time that it will, like the sunspots will go around the sun over a certain period, which is around, what, 28 days, Crow? But what do they mean by on its own axis?
Yeah, it is. It's spinning. And I have animation footage that proves that. Any animation footage that I produce, and let me explain, I'm calling it an animation, but it's not that I'm making it up. What happens when I create an animation is this. I film for 3 hours. Every 30 seconds, I take a 500 frame video. When I've got 3 hours of that, which is hundreds of 500 frame videos, I take the best frames out of every video and stack it down into a still. And then I roll those stills on a timeline, so it plays one still after the other. So it is an animation because I've just described to you how I'm doing, but I'm not adding anything except the color. Everything I film is in black and white because I can collect the most legitimate, accurate data that way. So anytime you see color in any solar thing I do, the color is fake. I choose a color that I think will help our eyes look at it, because that's what we expect to see. To get back to the point, it is a sphere. It's not arguable. Well, for me, it's not arguable because I've observed it. It's spinning. If I look at a sunspot and I'm filming at 9 a.m., roughly at 9 a.m. the next day, that sunspot, if it still exists, will be roughly in the same area. Now, there's some tricky things about the sun. If I was to get a camera and simply put a solar filter on it, which knocks down all the energy and surface brightness by 98%, that's called viewing in white light. The movement I will see is not always the same in white light as it will be in hydrogen alpha light, which is what I'm filming in. Sometimes the sunspots appear to move a little differently, but there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that it is a sphere. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that it is rotating on its own axis, as you would say.
Me too. And there was, before we get back to showing solar footage, I was putting a big question on the screen, and to the best of my ability, in so many words, what you should describe is, why do you think that the so-called second sun is like hiding behind the sun in your Lunt 130 millimeter footage, and it's kind of providing this offset glow, versus the other second sun footage that you showed in the member video? They're referring to the footage that you showed in the member video. So explain what you think the reason is why sometimes we see it behind and sometimes it's offset and diagonal.
I can't fake like I know more than I do, and I wish I knew so much more, which is why I put in these endless hours trying to learn. What I have learned right now is at sunrise, for some reason, on some days, not all, there's separation between the two bodies. Other days, like when there's been a big fire and there's smoke in the air, people have witnessed separation at midday. I filmed it in 2015, separated midday. Another guy replicated what I did. More than one person have replicated what I did. A observatory called the SLU Observatory filmed it during a live stream for children and flat out admitted that that was our second sun and that NASA didn't want us knowing about it. They have since created a cover story that he was only joking. But come on, man, who jokes to kids on a live stream showing Mercury transit the sun that we have a second sun? That's not a joke. That is not a joke, and I will never accept that that's a joke, because I have seen the other body that I assume is a second sun or a binary to our sun. That's an assumption on my part. Do I know for a fact? No, I do not. But my common sense, everything I've observed, and everything I have read from ancient cultures leads me to believe that that's what I'm looking at. I may be wrong. I may correct that someday. Here's the thing. In ancient Indian traditions, they have a binary sun. And guess what? They laid down the longest periods of time the human beings have ever put forward, called the Yuga cycles. And they state in one of the Yuga breakdowns, actually a lot more than one, that there is a binary, and when it gets further away from us, we go through dark ages and our consciousness goes down through the basement. They further state that when that binary gets closer to us, we go through better and better ages, from iron to bronze to silver to a golden age. And let me tell you something, when you see some of those temples in India that are carved out of one stone, how do you dismiss the idea of a golden age? Because we can't even begin to explain how that was done. And that's the easiest part to talk about. So I think that's probably what I have filmed. Why it moves, all I can say is I've been into astronomy for a long time. Everything up there moves, and a lot of them move differently. Saturn does not move like, the Pleiades star cluster, which does not move like Polaris, which does not move like Saturn, which does not move like the moon. So these things have motion. We can see it. We know that it happens. And my best guess right now is that its movement is slightly different from our point of view, from our perspective, than the sun we are familiar with. And by the way, I'm starting to think that if one of them is illusion, the one we see every day would fit that bill better than the other one we know so little about.
I'm so excited about episode 648 that we're releasing with Luke, who has his own theory called divine emission theory. He just published a 147 page paper. And I just think that it's astounding how much he can explain when he's adding the idea of emission pressure and scalar energy as a precursor to electromagnetism. And so I love that on the platform that you've created, you're able to help people share their points of view and the interesting things that they're coming up with. But a lot of what he talks about, it completely explains a lot of what we see in your solar work. So I think that maybe it could have something to do with pulsing and emission pressure when we learn about this other body, because we know that the sun that we see with our eyes is clearly physical and spherical, and it looks hollow, and we think it's acting like a converter to the spiritual realm. So there's so much to know about what the other body would be and why we see different things in the sky. But we need to do an emergency public service announcement, because we have a question here, or we have a statement here. This is important. We have someone who wants to capture the second sun. She thinks that she already saw it a couple days ago, and she has a P1000. And what I want to zero in on here is that she says she wants photos. But here's what we need to make sure everyone understands. You have to get video to rule out lens flare. So if you want to capture footage of the second sun, you want to make sure that you're on video and that you're zooming in and out of the second sun, and then also moving your camera around. And then if those two bodies stay stagnant, that rules out flare. Stagnant.
Static.
Okay, sorry. Static.
So here's the thing. If you're going to use a P1000 to film the sun, be safe. If you look at the sun for a millisecond through a lens of any kind, you could damage your eyes for good. What you need to do is get yourself a good solar filter for the end of that lens on the P1000, and you'll be shooting in white light. You'll probably, if you do that, that will probably be enough, because the other object is much dimmer than our sun, but you must shoot video. Also, someone has commented that the Kali Yuga just ended. I accept that that's probably true, and if it's not, that we're in the transition out of it. I accept the work of Sri Yukteswar Giri, and he readjusted the calculation for the timing and the transition periods of the yugas, stating that the numbers people were working from were put together during the darker ages when there was less consciousness to put towards the effort. I accept now that many of us are experiencing consciousness rise and spirituality rise. I accept that all living things, a plant, a dog, are experiencing the same thing. And to back that up, I have seen bulldogs grab a skateboard and use it exactly like a skateboard should be used. Had I seen that in the 1970s, that would have been the most famous dog in the world, but now it's commonplace. I witnessed the rise of consciousness in so many ways, but I don't see it everywhere in everyone. And in some ways, I think I detect backwards motion. But my point is, these older periods of time were covered by some cultures, but the information we get out of India, by far, to my knowledge, my limited knowledge, goes back the furthest. And this also, along with some other cultures, includes the idea of the binary. But I kind of lost my way, Rose. What was the main?
We just wanted to make sure that people knew that we wanted to rule out lens flare if they really want to get a legitimate capture. And we also don't want them hurting their camera, so they have to make sure they have the block out, which is kind of underwhelming when you're looking at the footage that you have on the screen right now. If you're using a P1000, it's not going to show the surface detail, but you will see sunspots if they're there.
Yeah, you'll see sunspots and a white disc. And if the other body is there, that's the other thing. Hopefully, you know your P1000 enough to be able to dim how much light comes into the camera, because can you find an image to put up where it shows the glow, the afterglow? Like, you can see it here, but Rose will find a better one.
This one.
Okay, let that load into YouTube. Okay, in this image, look at the lower left. In the lower left, see how much glow is coming off the edge of the sun. Now go up to the upper right. From about 11 o'clock down past 6 o'clock, moving right around the disk, there's an off-center glow. Notice how the glow is not equidistant all the way around. It is my contention, based on direct observation, that that is the other object slightly off-center behind the sun. I've filmed for 2 years now with my big telescope, and that offset changes. Sometimes it's at the upper left or the lower right or the lower left. I've seen it in each of these positions. So it is my contention that many of the stills, the solar stills that I provide for people, in many of them, I have intentionally left in that glow as evidence of what I think is likely the binary talked about in the Eastern traditions.
And you know what I feel like it is, what we're actually observing? I think it might have to do with capturing pressure waves coming off that anomaly, luminary, whatever you want to call it. But everything happens in waves and everything is curved, and somehow you're just capturing something that's being emitted from somewhere. So from this telescope and your location and the conditions of the atmosphere, this is what you're capturing. And then when we see the double sun diagonal and off to the side, that could be because there's different conditions that we're just not aware of. But
so anyone who's interested in the data, I forgot to mention this, Rose, there's a book called Holy Science by Yukteswar Giri. That's with a Y, Yukteswar. The book is Holy Science. His teacher tasked him with a task. He told him to write a book that showed that the spiritual traditions that he had been taught in his part of the world mirrored the spiritual lessons in a different language, in different costumes, in a different culture that we see in the Bible. So 90% of that book is all about the Bible and the scripture being described, what it means to them, having been brought up in India, and how all the spiritual roads are leading in a direction. But the reason I mentioned the book is because the first 12 pages, he recalculates the yuga cycles. And again, his teacher tasked him with writing the book. If you have an interest in a Bible and an interest in the idea that there may be long periods of time that we don't know much about, that would be a good book. It's not a big one. It's, I don't know, 120, 150 pages, something like that.
I've put the book list up on the screen a number of times. It's Linktree/Crrow777 books. Really easy to find. Tons of books that Crow really loves. And you were talking about Autobiography of a Yogi and The Devil's Pulpit, and so many different books, even recommended by Fortune. There's a lot on that list. I highly recommend it. Some people call that book list the Crrow777 University.
The books there all have something to offer, but I would urge anyone who wants to go at a book list like that, you've got to have an open mind. As an example, The Devil's Pulpit, someone could read that and walk away thinking, I've just been shown that everything the Catholic Church ever did in the Bible is fake. If that's what you walk away with, you've missed the point. What The Devil's Pulpit does is it shows what was hidden from you. And I've had this conversation with people on my show. Do you think the Reverend Robert Taylor lost his faith? And I guess we agree. I was worried about it for a while, but I guess we agree that he did not lose his faith. But he showed how the sky clock is hidden and how they've used it. Like, you see these events, these false events timed to the sky clock. Well, that's kind of what we're getting at here. There's a whole side to things that were covered up. But on the same nickel, one of my favorite books in this world is Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, who was actually the disciple of Yukteswar, who wrote the book about biblical scripture and the yugas that I just mentioned. And in that, if you can read that with an open mind, there is much to be learned. In my life, I take the view that I can learn something from any culture that has been around. They could teach me plenty. I do not shut my mind. In my view, those are all human beings created by the Creator, just like me. And I would like to learn and have an idea of what they experienced in their culture. And that's all I would mention. Oh, here's a heck of a shot. This is actually a sunspot. Remember, I told you the glowing tentacles go over and sparkle and arc down in there. This is the shot that I want to replicate. That is actually a sunspot, and you can see it's black and white, which is everyone shoots in black and white because you can get the most shades. In other words, you're collecting the most image data in black and white because of the color palette. Well, the shade palette in this case. But look at the top of that sunspot. There's another sunspot collapsing into it. Crazy.
And there's the CME that you captured, which was so fortunate, right, when you got the scope. And I do have a 2-minute clip about the double sun, and we talk about it so much, and we never really show the Coronado. Should we just play those 2 minutes so people can see?
Sure.
I think there's audio.
We should explain what they're about to see.
Okay.
So they get it.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I see the clip and it says final double sun. So let me just see if you're talking or not.
What you're going to see here is.
I think you're explaining.
Oh, okay. Go ahead then. I didn't realize. Go ahead. Sorry.
I prepared it this way.
Yep.
Here we go.
Footage you're going to see here is my footage. Hydrogen alpha scope with a double stack, a solar max. That is the sun you see with your eyes. Okay, I'm going to pan around here. And that's lens flare, legitimate lens flare that you're seeing there. There's the sun you see with your eyes. And in a second here, oh, I need to go the other way. There's lens flare. There we go. Watch the top. You'll see a little thing go by. This is the first time in the spring of 2016 that I discovered the double sun. There's the sun we see with our eyes. I'm still scanning around. I'm going to scan back over and find the other object for the first time. There it is, top of frame. This is the sun we do not see with our eyes. Now, I was afraid to post this for a long time. You're going to see that it will blur out. I'll mess with focus. I put a huge wrapping paper tube over the end of the Solar Max scope. When you see the disturbance over the face of this, that's what's going on. I'm trying to prove that this isn't lens flare, but all those there, right there. I also take my hand and I do light blocking over the end of the scope, which ironically, the gentleman who I'm about to introduce to you, who you should all go sub, saw this footage way back in 2016, and he replicated what I did, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, which is proof positive. Another individual doing it. Scanning back, there's a little bit of lens flare. There's the real sun that we see with our eyes in the bottom of frame, coming back into frame. Now I'm going to load another clip that I shot. I think I did this 3 or 4 days in a row, coming back to try to confirm this. Now here's a new clip. There's the sun you see with your eyes. That is legitimate lens flare right there. Scan out. There's the sun we don't see with our eyes on a new day.
So that was the little clip that I selected to show and explain it. Do you think that did a good job?
Can you put it on a loop muted?
Not automatically, but I will prepare that for the future if you'd like.
All right, so basically what you saw there is it was not a cheap telescope, but it was very low end compared to what I saved up for that I have now. It was only 60 millimeters. I'm shooting with 130 millimeters now. So it collects a lot more. But when I open up, you're looking at the sun we see with our eyes. And I'm filming color, by the way. I didn't know any better back then. So I'm using a color camera, and as I moved around, I found the other object. So the sun we see moves out of frame, lens flare happens, and then that other blurry object. It's almost like there's something like a firmament or something in between us and it. I don't know, but that's kind of what it seems like, because at that time, I couldn't get it into perfect focus. But I proved to my satisfaction it's there. It's an object. Later on, people replicated it. And actually, do you want to describe the whole filter thing that proves some things, Rose?
Okay, so what happened was when the double sun was being captured with the same kind of telescope that Crow used, the Coronado, in North Carolina, or maybe it was South Carolina, Crow had the idea, hey, why don't you twist some polarized filters? So actually you said, wouldn't it be great if you could twist some polarized filters in front of the telescope? And it just so happens that Cami had polarized filters. And so they did twist them. And what happened was the sun that you don't see with our eyes was eclipsed, which because of the laws of Faraday or the Faraday effect, it means that that object has an electromagnetic frequency of its own. Does that make sense, Crow? Did you mute yourself?
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. I had to deal with the dog for a second.
Oh, no problem. Everyone likes to hear the dog.
Well, he was crying to get out. He was going to pee his pants.
Oh, okay. Well, that's no fun.
Did you describe it to everybody?
Oh, yeah, and then I asked you if you thought I did a good job, so I guess we'll never know.
I know what you say every time, and you do a good job, but that is indisputable data. A polarized light filter does what it does. When light is polarized, that means it's all coming at you in the same direction. In the same way, I can take a pair of sunglasses that are polarized, and I look at the water and I can't see anything because there's glare. I put on the polarized lens, all the glare is gone instantly because it's only letting in that light coming in that one polarized direction. And so it is what it is. It was done on the sun we see, and it was done on the binary that we don't see very often. And that means something. And one thing it means to me is this is undeniable. There is something there. And I think it is the binary. If I learn something that tells me I'm wrong, I'll get in front of a mic and I'll say that. But until then, everything I've learned matches pretty well. Think about what it means to come to this time in our era and notice people getting more spiritual and children's consciousness, children being able to do things their parents could never do at a very young age, consciousness lifting, the ideas that were handed down to us of a binary. And when it gets closer, our consciousness rises. The idea that our consciousness and our lives and everything that we are is connected to the sun. And that's undeniable. Without the sun, this place is a cave. Would it even have life? If it did, it wouldn't resemble what we have now. And the plant kingdom is a good example of what the sun means to us. And all these things line up. We're in a very exciting time. But unfortunately, the people who have worked to have power knew this shift was coming, and they are leveraging it to their ends. And it is my point of view that they're going to use technology to slave everyone everywhere out in real time. And they're already well underway. Every app you put on your phone, every digital tool you get addicted to, you are helping to enslave yourself. I've taken a vow that I won't use AI, which puts me behind the 8 ball and at a disadvantage. But because of my spiritual things that I accept, I have made that choice. And there will probably come a time, if they get their way and nothing changes, where if you don't accept their mark of the beast or their tech implant or whatever it ends up being, you will be separated from society. You will be held out of society. And I've already prepared that if it comes to that, that's where I will be. But make no mistake, the sun is the arbiter of these very things, the age change. Unfortunately, we've lived in a world where the information has been controlled. And now it's much worse because people don't use books anymore. And what was written on the internet last night is not what's written on the internet this morning. And when I go to a page and I read about, say, a man who is described as a murderer with a push of a button now, that could be a man who was interesting. Could change the whole context of everything with a button push. This is like the barn wall in the book Animal Farm, where the animals couldn't quite remember what the laws were written on the barn wall, and they kept changing them. And they'd say, wait a minute, did that change? But they couldn't quite remember. And that's why we were handed books like that. And that is the road we are on now. And that's why, in my view, all this matters. It matters big time. The spiritual path that we can all choose to take now is as important, almost as important as eating and breathing, in my view. But anyhow, I'm getting kind of off track here, Rose.
I really love the photos that you showed me before that we weren't able to get uploaded. Do you want to share your screen now and roll through? a few of those really nice ones. I mean, at the very least, if you could share the one where you increased the way we could perceive the filaments and they look super 3D.
Yeah, let me get set up here and I'll try to do the screen share. You're going to have to tell me what's going on because I can't see.
Yeah, I'll confirm whether or not we can see what you're presenting. I'm waiting for it.
All right, you ready? I'm going to do it.
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Let me choose. Okay, it's happening. You got it?
It's happening. All right, I got it. I'm looking at it now. Where it's shooting out.
This is those lines, those prominences at the upper left that look like lines. Those are actually all arcing. Each one of those is arcing. We're just at an angle where we see them edge on. This was shot on 4/10/25. This is one where I experimented. It occurred to me that when we look at the sun with our eyes, we're looking at it in a blue sky. So instead of darkening down the background you use contrast to do that, instead as I laid the false color, which is orange, over this so that it's interesting to look at, I tried to leave or actually put blue into it. But on this day, this whole area that I filmed, and I have an animation of this, I believe, shot on 5/26/25. I know I have an animation of this. It's 3.5 hours, and there was a lot of activity. Now here is a close-up of a sunspot, not inverted. How can you tell? Because it's black. All the energy around it is white, and if I had inverted it, the sunspot would be white, and all the white would be black. But look at that amazing light bridge. The crazy thing about this is the day that it was either this day or the following day. I think it was this day that I filmed the CME, what they call a coronal mass injection. And the interesting thing about that, I saw it happen in real time. That's how quick, that's how much energy came to be so quickly. Normally, I have to film and speed it up hundreds of times. With that CME, I actually witnessed it happen in something like 4 or 5 minutes. But I love this shot. That kind of smoky filament all around and that light bridge reminds me of that bridge that the Marvel guys make the Vikings go on.
I don't know what that is, but I just really like the angle that you were able to capture the filament coming out and then how it just kind of looks like the white is surrounding it and then coming down. So much detail. And it's so interesting because when you look at that clip of the double looping prominence, there's a part where you can see the filament just looks like this black snake shadow. And you know that it's just connected to what's shooting out from that perspective.
I had to really enlarge this and I had to really work at it to not kind of destroy the image. But this is one of my more favorite sunspot images because of that light bridge.
Yeah.
Here's a half disc shot. And when I processed it, I intentionally tried to make it look more 3D. But what do we know about this shot? Don't be fooled. The sunspots are white if you look carefully, and the black areas should be white if it was not inverted. And again, there's no issue with inverting an image. The most, like NASA does it and everyone below NASA. Actually, most of the time, NASA doesn't do it in the stuff I see. All right, this was just shot in August, early August. And I'm starting to get a little more skilled at how I'm able to process. The issue with processing is you don't want to change anything because, in my opinion, that's dishonest. So you're never going to add a sunspot or make something that wasn't there. When you process, you basically can control the contrast and the levels, and you put color on, which is the last step. You just lay color over it, and it could be any color. It could be pink, but this is the color that most people tend to assign to the black and white captures because your eye expects something like this. And to be honest, in certain shots, if I don't color it, I can see more detail in the black and white, but it's much more interesting this way. But look at the glow in this image behind the sun. It's offset, right? Remember the other one I showed you, it was offset to the right. This one's offset to the left. If you look really closely, you'll notice the edge of the glow on the left side. See it? There's a line in there, and then the outer glow takes over. Again, in my view, that is the binary back there. Here's another shot that is very similar to the one I showed you earlier. I think it's actually the same shot, where I tried to black out the background to make those little filaments or the prominences up on the left there jump out at us. This I just did a couple weeks ago, and I'm really proud of the quality and the production. There's a few things that I guess I would change. There's a little bit too much yellow in the prominences, but other than that, it's getting there. My ability to do this is improving. This is the one, let me look at the date. Yes, this is the one that was shot on the day that people reported seeing the Aurora Borealis in Rhode Island, that far south. Look how much is going on. The prominences almost all the way around. They are all the way around, just on the left side, they're much smaller. But look at all the filaments and look at all the energy swirls and the number of sunspots that are all ganged together. And I think this is key. Typically, if you have two sunspots close together, energetic things can happen. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe 13 little spots all kind of conglomerating there. It's a heck of a shot.
And there's so much more activity than back in 2017 when a lot of people were buying their P1000s.
Yes.
Those people, if they got discouraged, they should get those cameras out of the closet, you know, wipe the dust off and get it back on the sun.
Yeah, just remember, you've got to be dedicated to this, because to shoot in white light, what you would be seeing here is a white disc with some black spots where the sunspots are. That's mostly what you will see. Occasionally, you can see the outline of a prominence, but it has to be really, really prominent to get any, you know, to be able to detect it at all. I have seen white light where you can tell there's probably a prominence there.
The picture you're showing here.
The what isn't?
I just love this picture you're showing here. I mean, this right here kind of doesn't, the way that the filaments are protruding, doesn't it kind of like, if you imagine how the sun looks as it rotates, it's kind of like they're forming around the shell that's the outer hydrogen.
That's exactly what's going on. If you look at the top of this image, there are prominences that look like flames. Each one of those white swirls on the face is a prominence. You're just looking straight down on it, and they call it a filament when you're viewing it in this way. I have plenty of footage where there's a filament that is going up and arcing over the corner into a prominence. It's the only difference between the flames up top and that straight line in the middle is that you're looking straight down on the one in the middle. They're the same thing. And yes, it is on that outer shell. And in my point of view, we are literally looking at an outer shell.
I apologize for cutting you off. I actually was just saying that out loud to myself. It was unmuted.
No worries.
So we've been talking about your solar work for an hour and 13 minutes. And the reason why we went live tonight was to explain that we could not play the episode that we released today. So I don't know what your schedule is like or how much brain cells you have left for the night, because you're usually more awake in the morning. Do you want to shift over to talk about the episode, or do you want to show more pictures?
Yeah, let me go through a couple more and we'll shift over to the episode and get ready to wrap up. This is a 2 sunspots. And what do you know from what I've told you? This is an origin shot, not inverted. The sunspots are black. The white area is all the energy that is so intense that it's just whited out. As a matter of fact, in a different wavelength, it wouldn't just look like a white patch. In a different wavelength, you would be able to see all the detail in that. Crazy thing about the sun is changing the wavelength a little can drastically change the view. And there are so many wavelengths that could be used to bring to bear on this. There's more sunspots. And here's a good example, because look, the sunspots are black, and look at the filaments. They're black. So you know darn well, not inverted. And here's the animation I just did the other day. And actually, it's not going to let me get the control. There it is. Oh, there we go. This was shot. I was going for a 3-hour run. I got an hour before the wind just started shaking my scope, so I had to quit. Running with either 0 seconds or half a second of the frames, which I think there's 96 frames maybe. I get 4 seconds. This is slightly longer because I slowed it down just a little, but this is on maybe an average seeing with below average transparency, just to set the benchmark. When I get my shot this fall, hopefully, and everything's above average, what we will be able to image and learn is just staggering. But anyhow, I'm going to break this connection. Did it happen?
It happened successfully.
Okay, let's shift over and we'll talk a little bit about the episode. And I just want to say, folks, come join us over at Crrow777 Radio. We're on a private server for the reasons that I've described, because I will no longer upload my work to places that want to have control of it, delete it, say that I can't talk about things, all that. I'm not doing it anymore. That's why we run the private server. You get access to all the solar work. I'm working on my 18th solar member video, best footage I've shot to date. The stills that people can get and print are there. They can get into all the comment sections and forums and create top level ideas. Plus they can stream Shoot the Moon anytime they want. Shoot the Moon has 10 awards in the world, and the last 2 came from India. The last one from Jaipur, India, and it contains 7 lunar waves, 5 of which I shot. It contains an endless litany of bizarre UFOs like the shooting orb, which I can't even tell you what's going on there. A light ball shoots like a laser beam or something, shoots plasma into a chemtrail. There's a vortex clip that was shot in a spectrum we can't see with our eyes. There is the discovery that you saw a little of the so-called second sun. There's a lot going on there, so I hope you come join us. So anyhow, let's shift over, Rose.
Okay, so it's funny because not only can we not share any of the episode that we released today, and that's why we're so fortunate that we have the platform so that you could go over and without even being a member, you can listen to the first free hour along with over 700 hours of radio. But this particular episode, we're putting out the blog, and I usually like to copy and paste the whole blog and then put a link, read more blogs. But then Crow, weren't you hesitant to even share the blog about the episode? And so that's why we just put the first paragraph and then a link for people to read the rest.
Yeah, so the first paragraph was the only thing that could go out over Google products. What you've got to realize that in 2017, Google deleted my YouTube channel. They did it because we told the truth about what happened at Mandalay Bay, and we tied it to that old story, double bubble, toil and trouble, where 3 witches in the desert are with a demon familiar named Paddock, which was also the name of the fake shooter. So we outed that. They deleted my channel. The day before they deleted it, if you search Crrow777, you got 16 to 21 million unique returns. People had embedded my video all over this world. The day they took it down, 3 weeks later, they put it back. Everyone kept saying, you got to make a new channel. I said, I'll never make a new channel, and I never will. But they put it back after they took 20 or 30,000 subs. And from that day forward, when you search Crrow777, you might get 1,200 returns, but on the second page, it's already duplicates. They put an algorithm out to censor me. I had friends of mine who were like white hat hackers, do tests. In some countries, if they haven't heard of me and you literally put Crrow777 Radio, you get 0 returns. So that's what they've done. The first paragraph of what I just wrote for this blog, which is so critically important, talks about how to get the toxins out of you and another method that's come online. I couldn't put it out over Google, so we put out the first paragraph, and the rest of it is available on the website. Now you know why that website is valuable. We couldn't share this. We couldn't talk about this if I didn't pony up to pay a server bill, which is getting more expensive all the time, by the way. But anyhow,
I don't even know how we could try to explain it in code, But do you want to just read the first paragraph of your blog?
Yeah,
And I
maybe
guess
that's not a bad idea. And here, let me bring it up. I'll do that. I'll read the first paragraph of the blog.
yeah, because basically it's just about how as human beings, we're living in a certain era where we have to protect ourselves from things. And it's just sad that when you want to share useful information, you get slapped on the wrist or even shut down.
Or worse, yeah. So you guys will notice by the title, even the title I put on this, I have to, even though I'm on a private server, for this to go out in the world, this is the title I had to use. Inner spring cleaning year round, speak easy or talk sick. This is what I do my whole life, is play word games and titles. The subtitle that goes into this says this: in a toxic world, inner cleaning is going on inner cleaning is ongoing and for the duration. 4-season cleaning is required and now tied to performance. Here's the first paragraph, or the only thing we could possibly put out other than on Crrow777 Radio. It is no secret that our world has become very toxic. Microplastics and so-called forever chemicals are the tip of the biohazard iceberg. Our bodies are barraged daily by toxin levels that have accumulated in the environment for nearly a century now. There was a time when the food we ate, water we drank, and the air we breathed was not tainted at the levels we now face. Those days are gone. Our bodies work nonstop to remove toxins through breath, urine, defecation, and sweat. And yet we clearly see ailments and disease statistics skyrocketing. Our natural systems are being overloaded. Clearly scrutinizing what we ingest and implementing additional clean-out methods is a must for those who wish to remain healthy into old age. Luckily, new methods to do this are available. I implement them every day without fail and feel better for it. What are these methods? And that is all we could put out. You can go to the website. The first free hour is free to anyone if they don't want to become a member. And in that first free hour, you'll be told what we're talking about. I use this every day. You use it every day too, don't you, Rose?
Yes.
Do you think we could get away with explaining what our doctor friend experienced with the autistic children?
No, I don't think that we can get away with it. I think that is the absolute worst, most egregious offense that you could commit on YouTube.
You're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. I would. This is the whole reason for a private server. It is not long before that will be the only place. It's already happening. Every day I see on YouTube these people who react to things. They're basically going to TikTok, lifting approved content, because if it's there, it's approved. And then they echo it every day across thousands of channels. That is what the information on the internet is coming to. Set aside the fact that it can be changed or deleted at any time. The point I'm making is these private servers, and for years I told people who want to talk about serious things, about true things, that you have to get a private server, and so few do. They go over to Rumble and they say, oh, we're not getting censored here. I said, yeah, don't hold your breath. The time will come. And they say, well, the people over there don't believe in censorship. None of them did. When they stood their ground, they were told, how do you like your internet connectivity? You either get in line or you're not going to have an internet connection. Or worse, plenty of ways they can control it. Someday, I imagine running a private server will be very different. Point is, I want to thank you all for coming here today because you're helping to support what we're doing. I want to thank the people who contributed monetarily. That helps me pay for the server. I have to pay an ungodly amount just to get the emails delivered to the members each week. I'm not even kidding. For 6 months or something, I had been sending out emails that I was told was delivered. I later learned they weren't delivered. They were thrown into the ether. So we pay for everything to have a platform where we can act like it's, 1980 again and actually exercise free speech, because that ain't here. But anything else, Rose?
Yeah, people were curious about the episode that got your channel deleted. So on the private server, you still, of course, to this day, can always listen to episode 76, which is synchronistic considering that your channel was deleted for episode 77.
Right. How synchronistic is that? It was episode 76 and they deleted episode 77 off Crrow777. Suppose there's a message in that somewhere. But what's the name of the three witches in the desert? Macbeth. Is it Macbeth?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we tied it to Macbeth, and that was the last straw. And like I said, there's now an algorithm that censors. If you put the word lunar wave in before all this happened, there were millions of returns. If you do it now, in some countries, they don't even get a return. You're lucky if you get 1,000 returns or 1,200 returns, but on the very second page, it's already duplicates. Before all this happened, back in the day, there was page after. You couldn't even get through them because so many people had embedded the videos that I shot with my telescope or was talking about things. And this is the control that we're headed into. And if people continue to fall in love with and rely on technology, it's not going to be good. Not that I can say it's going to be good for those of us who don't, but it is what it is. Think for yourself. I have some that I've got in mind, but I've got to be able to get to a point where I know the seeing will be the best it can be, and the weather's not going to kill me because I have a lot of equipment, and it's complex equipment to do this. So anyhow, thank you for asking.
All right. Well, we have some really great episodes coming out soon, some of which can be streamed to YouTube and some of which can't. Luckily, we will be able to stream our episode with Ben Balderson on alchemy, which I thought that was a slam dunk. And then we have the upcoming episode with Luke and Marion and Dr. Trebbing. And so I'm really glad that we have all of these interesting topics to cover. Also, I don't know if you remember our Zoom meeting with Paul.
Yep.
We're going to be recording 2 episodes with him. And I just like the name of the topic of the bullet points, which is the Great Brain Robbery. So
that guy's after my own heart. The first time I met him, I knew that we clicked. But here's the thing, guys. We got this private server because everything that mattered was being deleted. We used to cover all the things. Why don't you hear about Sandy Hook anymore? You know why? Because on YouTube, it was ripped apart in real time at a level that was unbelievable. That's why all the information is gone. That's why nobody talks about it. If you come to Crrow777 Radio as a member, this is what happens. People get into the episodes, but then they go back to episode 1. From about episode 1 up to about episode 300, I'm guessing, there are the hardest hitting topics. There's only so many times I can hit a topic, but I'm talking life-changing topics that offer you the ability to reconsider things in a different way. Things like nuclear weapons don't exist as described. Dinosaurs don't exist as described. Things like these false events that have happened all over the world, so many that we've actually had people say that their kids would be better off going back and listening to those older episodes up to the new stuff instead of going in debt $150,000 for college. And I agree, if you want education to be based in something of value and not just things you remember so you can work in a system that you know nothing about. But there it is. Are we there, Rose? Uh-oh. Did I lose Rose?
I just wanted to share my screen really quick and show the playlists. If you go to Crrow777radio.com, there's a link to the playlist, and you can see here that we have a playlist just for Jason. We have a playlist just for Wayne, Clive DeCarl, and just a bunch of different topics.
Fortune.
Yeah, we've got a Fortune playlist, and then I was going to scroll down Ben Balderson playlist. We've got a zeolite, clinoptilolite playlist, a Dr. Trebbing playlist, Michael Hoffman.
Red Blue Mind Spell.
Yeah, the Red Blue Mind Spell. So there's a lot of good playlists, and on the homepage, if you're logged out, you'll get the playlists to all of the free first hours, no login required. And that's it, Crow. I could always come up with more things to say, but I think this has been a great stream, and congratulations on getting more outstanding solar telescope work.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this and trying to learn together and trying to focus on things that actually matter in this world instead of nonsense like the mind blue mind virus or whatever garbage the news decided to invent today. It makes a big difference. And the time is coming rapidly, where this world is going to be vastly different. And if we choose to participate and co-create what's to come, it will be vastly different than what we see going on now. Come join us at Crrow777Radio.com. There are well over 1,000 hours of content that you have access to. We're doing episode 644 now. Those are 2-hour episodes. There are also a litany of 1-hour episodes. I'm not even counting. And the information offered to you there can change everything if you choose to go that way. There it is. I don't have anything more. Rose, do you?
Nope. Let's close it out. Have a great night, everyone. And thank you so much for being here for the live stream. And please do click the like button and write in a comment if you have a question, and I'll try and grab all questions. If you type in caps, I'll know that you want us to answer on the air. So thank you so much.
Oh, I forgot.
Oh.
New members of Crrow777 Radio get free solar images. We just set this up. If you join for a year, you get like 2 or 3. I forget. If you just do the month thing, you get to choose. Have you used it, Rose? Do you know how it works?
Yeah, basically when you sign up as a member, you get a discount code. So it's really easy because you just pretend like you're going to buy it, but then the discount code makes it $0.
And so you can choose. And again, I want to say it comes to you as a PDF for a reason, because most people want to use the online things, but they just want a JPEG. JPEGs are compressed. They're not high quality. If you take that thing that you download and you take it to a real printer, some of those print up to 50 inches or anything less. Some people print it on glass. They're gorgeous. If you do that, if you become a member and you print it and you hang it, please take a snapshot and send it to us, because we would appreciate that. But hey, really, guys, come join us. The time is short in this world. How much longer will we be able to even have, this kind of community and a private server where we can talk like adults? Because I sure as hell don't say pew pew or unalive. If I'm going to talk about a gun, I'm going to say gun. If someone passed away, I will say appropriately what describes that best, like the word dead. And it is absolutely ridiculous that people are being taught to self-censor as if the AI bot monitoring doesn't know the difference between unalived and dead. It is literally training, self-training. But with that, please come join us. And I'd like to wish you all a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era, because truly, that's what's going on here. There it is, man. Cheers. It's about a guy who got a telescope, learned the mainstream ways, went out, observed the sky, and over time began to realize, wait a minute, what I'm observing here does not jive with what I've been told. When you take for granted things like the sun and the moon and the sky, and you just accept all the things you've been told, there's a whole universe out there waiting for you, pun intended. The freedom to speak, the freedom to think, freedom of expression is being decimated by major corporations. And I will maintain to everyone listening, it's being done to the sky clock. And as we come into what I consider to be a new era here, you're going to find a lot of people out in the world challenging things that are supposed to be unchallengeable. And that's absolutely what a free society does. Really proves it is the camera pan. So when I panned the camera down, the wave started. I didn't notice it, but as I panned it up, I went above the wave and the wave caught up to the camera, and that's proof positive that it's a filmed event. You begin to understand that what you've been told is not accurate. It just isn't. And I launched a podcast to put out another perspective, a point of view. We're all familiar with how an animal lives its life in the world. There's really no pre-planning in most of its everyday events. They go through life, something suddenly happens, and they react to that thing. They don't stop and think about what's happening. Usually they're scared, or they run, or they react very quickly to whatever goes on. It's a reactionary mindset. And this is much of what we see with false news as an example. False news is put out on the television, on the media. People are exposed to it, and they react. They do not take the time to be a human being, to think about what they're being presented with, challenge what they're being presented with, and benefit from the change that will occur over time if they get into the habit of doing this.
The Zika virus, I don't know if it's every year, but like maybe every other year, they're coming up with something, some horrible thing is going on in some place, and it's going to get you, and you got to do what we say. But what do you think about that?
Problem is all these kind of viruses and medical things, they play on our humanness, and they play on emotion. Emotion is wasted motion. Whenever you allow yourself to be manipulated into these high emoted states, you have opened the door for magic to be done against you. And when I say magic, it means to create a thing that was not there a second ago, which all of a sudden is there now.
I would agree with you there, definitely. Cause and effect, it's one of those immutable natural laws. You do something, there's going to be a consequence, and that's what it all boils down to. What they're trying to do is subvert the consequence from actually affecting them by having the action perform before there's a possible consequence for it. It's kind of hard to explain.
I know exactly where you're going with this, but in some ways it does bring you back to mentalism again, doesn't it? You know, in some ways they're demonstrating over and over and over that our minds can be used for their benefit. Movies are the perfect example of this.
Now, what you've just been saying, I would say that kind of harkens back to the old adage that your thoughts create reality, and that the elite want to use that by shaping your thoughts so they can get the reality they want.
Bingo. You got it. That's exactly what the whole point of that is. They're trying to bring about this reality that they want, and they're going to use you to do it. And once again, these experiments, they do nothing but prove that your observation and your thought does affect reality around you.
All right, let's talk about Alchemy 101. What are the basics that a mind should be aware of with regard to alchemy in the era we exist in?
The universe was created for our success. Heaven and earth are one and the same, and the moment is all positive. All places are holy, and all moments are perfect. The moment being all positive, meaning that it is Eden, Nirvana. The moment is peace, joy, and beauty. To begin, once we know that, the birthrights of the soul are love, joy, and success. No matter what the soul's past has done in any incarnation, you have the chance to finish up every time you are here. We need to know that the 3 A's, attention, affection, acknowledgement, are necessary for the soul's thriving. There is no death, only infinite, eternal rebirth and life. The universe operates on perpetual health, and the gateway to the alchemical process is knowing that the moment is infinite.
In my view, for the people who want to take an interest and get out and try to add something to what we can learn in the modern age by filming the sky, I think the sun is going to be the next big thing.